Passamos agora então para o Dr. Sérgio João Teixeira Congo, com uma apresentação com o título Human Rights, Moral Principles, Social Justice and Development. O Dr. Sérgio Congo frequenta o programa em Ciência e Tecnologia da Universidade da Coreia, mestre pela Universidade da Coreia do Sul, com a dissertação Angola Pathway Towards E-Government. Tem a palavra. Obrigado.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you once again. Let me start by saying that it's a great pleasure to be here. And I thank the organizing committee for the opportunity to attend this very well organized conference. I think it's important to note that this is a timely event as we celebrate early next month the 68th anniversary of the adoption of the universal, Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the UN General Assembly on December 10th, 1948. As the chair mentioned, my paper is entitled Human Rights, Moral Principles, Social Justice and Development. And on this brief presentation, I will try to enlighten the views of some prominent philosophers regarding natural rights. I will also briefly review the adoption and implementation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and I will finalize my presentation analyzing the impact of the SDGs on human rights protection and promotion. So taking a brief look at natural rights. Natural rights are the core foundation of human rights, and they are based on universal laws, opposed to those based on man-made positive laws. These natural rights are rights that are not given by they're not dependent on any laws or customs or any particular culture or government, and therefore they're unalienable and universal. And their universality are based on the fact that they are not given or provided by any government or any culture, as I mentioned earlier. And as you can take a look at the screen, some of those natural rights are life, liberty, property ownership, free will and choice, independent thought and speech, socialization and relationship, personal beliefs and values. So on my paper, I argued the interpretation of these rights in international, regional, and national level as well. And to illustrate a little deeper on this natural rights, I made a comparison on the views of some early philosophers, such as Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, John Mill, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And these four philosophers have contributed much to the understanding of distinction between the rights of an individual and the power of the state. Hobbes, for instance, he argues that state has total authority, and therefore authority is above law. Locke, for instance, he argues that citizens are in agreement with the state to forfeit elements of their freedom. And with that being said, state then has authority. On the other hand, John Mill argues that citizens should have complete freedom. but should agree to act in a way which cause no harm. And Jean-Jacques Rousseau argues that citizens should give up some of their rights, some of their freedom to establish civil liberty. And in that sense, society benefits from this view. Nevertheless, the concept of human rights has received a wider attention by various parties at the national, regional, and international level. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights made it become an international norm encoded in many national constitutions, UN documents, as well as regional accords stressing the universality of human rights. Even though a lot of milestones have been achieved through the implementation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it's important to notice that there are instances when human rights are violated through heinous acts and atrocities. Throughout history, we have seen violations of human rights in many parts of the globe, and I can't help but mention what's happening, for instance, in places like Aleppo. And I believe that this is a reminder for all of us on how far we have come and how much work is there to be done when it comes to human rights protection and promotion. And in most cases, such regions or countries have cited that cultural and national sovereignty, which they believe to be above international treaties on human rights. And in other instances, human rights administration in equal measure is handled by the economic status and resource environment of a nation. In most developing nations, for example, certain rights are not applied as they are in the industrialized world. And in that sense, I believe that it's worth to note that universality of human rights does not necessarily mean uniformity. These rights are accepted universally, but they are not applied the same way in all over the world. On January 1st this year, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, adopted by all the 193 UN member countries, came into effect. And this is a plan to achieve a better future for all, laying a path over the next 15 years to maintain extreme poverty, fight inequality and injustice, and protect human rights. The new global goals result from a process that has been more inclusive than ever before, with governments involving businesses, civil society, and citizens from the outset. World leaders have pledged to shift the world onto a path of inclusive, sustainable, and resilient development for all people. We have the most important mission of protecting human rights, proving that this ambitious plan is achievable and no one is left behind. It's safe to say that we all in agreement on which direction the world needs to take, and that successful implementation of the 2030 Agenda will require all parties to champion it. So, human rights are closely interlinked with the cross-cutting issues for poverty reduction, such as reduced inequalities, quality education, gender equality, peace, justice, and strong institutions. So I strongly believe that there's no way we can apply effectively or protect effectively human rights unless we have in place stronger institutions, unless we put in place, we have institutions that protect the rights of those who are vulnerable. As such, there's a growing consensus that human rights are one of the most important domains that should be highlighted in the post-2015 development agenda, where an emphasis on inclusiveness is placed. So I strongly believe that we live at a moment of peril, a moment of uncertainty in many places, in many parts of the globe. But I also believe that this is an era of hope. This is an era in which there is no other group more poised to help realize the dream of freedom and equal rights than today's young people. They represent the biggest generation of youth in history, more aware and more connected than ever before. World leaders should make greater investment in realizing the potentially massive contributions of young promoters and protectors of human rights, of respect for human rights. On the other hand, it's essential to mobilize all parts that share the goal of protecting human rights, such as non-governmental organizations, faith-based groups, and corporations. We all have a role to play in fostering social progress, protecting inequality reduction, achieving long-term sustainable development, and creating a better world. So this requires an effort from all of us, from all involved parts. And to quote what once Ellie will say, the opposite of love is not hate, it is indifference. So as long as we don't stay indifferent, as long as we all join hands together, human rights are achievable and can be implemented as they were initially created. I will end my presentation here, and I'll thank you for your attention.